Hello, my name is Trevor Newland. I'm the author and illustrator of the Atheneum. This is a book about a character named Jack, a timid young boy who can't speak up for himself. And he has to go on a journey to find a sense of boldness and the ability to stand his own in the world around him, to find a voice of his own. For the first part of the book, Jack has no mouth, which is a metaphor for him being unable to find a voice of his own. And the adventure begins in a storm. So there's a sense of abandonment and fear and the inability to be bold and speak up for yourself and being lost. The first sections of the book are all about Jack and some of the trials and travails that he faces as someone who can't voice his opinion, someone who becomes victimized by others who can voice their opinions, someone who just simply doesn't have a voice of his own. In the metro, he's overcome by a crowd who pushes past him onto the train. In the night market, he is victimized by a merchant who takes his money, a thief who steals his remaining money, a passerby who knocks his drink over. These are all things that occur to someone who can't stand up for himself. Even when he leaves the night market and simply walking down the street, he's victimized by a bunch of bullies in a car. But then he sees something interesting. An old man emerges from a shop called the Atheneum, which is a used and rare bookshop. And the old man seems oddly familiar, and he beckons Jack to come in out of the storm and get some shelter. And Jack decides that he will get out of the storm, and he enters the Atheneum, which is a somewhat dark and foreboding place, but it's also supposed to be somewhat wondrous. There are thousands of books and corridors and nooks and crannies. And the old man acts as a herald, and he beckons Jack in, and he immediately discerns what Jack's problem is. This boy has no voice of his own. He needs to develop a voice of his own, and he offers him a chance to go on an adventure in the Atheneum to find that voice. And Jack must make the decision to accept, and he does. And he wanders off into the stacks, and he begins looking through all these classic books that have characters who can stand up for themselves and are bold and have voices of their own and can stand up against bullies or the system that's oppressing them. And Jack, of course, dives into each one of these fictional worlds, and each one of these literary icons gives him a piece of advice on how to be bold. Baron Munchausen tells him it's all about bluff. But in every example, there's some validity to this advice, but it doesn't really work for Jack. Bluff doesn't help him when he slips into the world of Pinocchio in the belly of a whale. Deductive reasoning from Sherlock Holmes doesn't really help him when he comes face to face with the Hound of the Baskervilles. So he's soaking up ideas about how to become bold and get a voice of his own, but nothing is really working for Jack, and he constantly finds himself in retreat. In each situation, before he runs into serious trouble, he'll open a new book and suddenly be in the new world. Here he is in the world of the Musketeers. For them, dash and daring do, this classic adventure bravery, is the key. But as we can see, that doesn't really work in all situations. So as Jack goes on this journey in search of boldness and a voice of his own, he's swept from one world to the next, every time getting a piece of advice about what being bold means, but every time failing to be bold. Ultimately, he ends up in the world of Treasure Island after he escapes a beheading from Alice in Wonderland. And at this point, he realizes he's really going to have to make up his own mind about what it means to be bold. And he decides to, he reconsiders all the advice he's been given from all these literary heroes, and he realizes there's some validity to it, but really, being bold is simply speaking up for yourself. And this is a real treasure that we're given, we have the opportunity to have. And as he leaves the Atheneum, the old man gives him a book, The Sandman, which is an important book. Of course, The Sandman is a book of dreams. The Sandman comes to you in dreams. Jack emerges back into the night, and he discovers all these strange parallels between characters on the street and characters he recalls from the adventures. And the distinction between reality and fantasy begins to blur and to dissipate as he makes his way back home. As he gets home, you can see that the parallels between the opening panel of the book and these final panels come through. He arrives home. Like the old man at the beginning, he makes his way up the stairs and into his bedroom. He brushes his teeth like the old man. He slips into his pajamas and then slips into bed to read some of The Sandman. And we see that this book, The Sandman, is a book of awakening from your dreams. And so he does awaken from his dream, and we realize that the old man is Jack. And that's the twist on this archetypal tale of someone going into a magical shop and delving into magical worlds. The old man is Jack himself. He received The Sandman, this book, as a young boy, and it obviously changed his life, and it led to personal fulfillment and professional happiness and confidence and having a voice of his own. And so the twist here on this age-old archetypal tale of someone going into a magical shop and delving into all these literary worlds is that Jack and the old man are the same character. And the story's telling you can help yourself. You don't need others to help you to be bold. You can find a voice of your own. You can literally, in this story, help yourself by reading and gaining wisdom and insight of characters from literature. So that's the Atheneum. Thank you for taking time to listen.